Get a credit card that gives you what you need now. A low interest rate on everyday purchases and a place to transfer high interest rate balances. The PenFed Gold Contactless Card is our lowest interest rate credit card. You can even earn a $100 statement credit when you spend $1,500 in the first 90 days. Join PenFed and together we can help you keep more of what's yours. Visit PenFed.org/goldcard. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA.
Hey, welcome to a brand new Murder Monday. If you're new to the podcast, maybe you found us because of all the holiday and Halloween listening and creepy stuff going around. That doesn't mean anything, but whatever. Then I appreciate you checking out the Murder Monday podcast. My name's Steve. We put out a new podcast every week, and when I say we, I mean me. I'm the only one doing this, but you get the idea, because I like talking about myself in the third person now, I guess. Anyway, this story is actually about a cold case that took quite a long time to solve. I shouldn't mention that originally I was thinking about doing a Murder Monday where we didn't have a resolution, but this time I promise we will have resolution, even though the resolution took quite a long time. So let's get into it. It's a new Murder Monday. Hi, this is Steve. This is the Murder Monday podcast, and this is called Someone's Lying: The Murder of Janet Walsh. On August 31st, 1979, 23-year-old Janet Walsh was looking to start over. She was only 23 and newly divorced, living by herself in an apartment for the very first time. That night, she danced and enjoyed herself, and after leaving the club, Janet Walsh headed home. And that next day, September 1st, she was discovered dead in her bed. When investigators pulled back the bedsheet that covered her body, right away they knew that this girl had been murdered. A background check revealed that she had recently separated from her husband, a jealous man who people say followed her around town. Janet was discovered in her bed on September 1st, 1979, with her arms bound and a sheet covering her. Her father was the one who found her body after her boss called to say that she hadn't made it into work. Police quickly ruled out the idea that this could be a random crime or even a robbery gone wrong. Her jewelry and other valuables in her bedroom were untouched. Even her pocketbook was closed. The best evidence police had at that moment was the light blue bandana, which was used to murder her, still wrapped around her neck. Within a short time, what they lacked in clues, they made up for in suspects. Police had 5 possible killers. The first, Janet's ex, Scott, her high school sweetheart who she had married when she was 20 and then divorced. And on that September 1st morning, he was actually seen outside of Janet's house. He claims to have been dropping off his monthly support check for her, something he claims to have done on the 1st of every month for the last few months. Suspect number 2 was a man she met the night before. His name is Robert. They danced at the bars the night before, and he even asked her to give him a ride home, which she refused. Then, a few days after Janet's body was found, this man's checkbook was found in a gutter just a few blocks away from Janet's house, with the last check written days before Janet's murder. The third suspect? On the evening of Janet's murder, a neighbor of Janet's had a knock on the door. The neighbor opened the door and was greeted by a man around 22 years old, clean-shaven, hair parted down the right, glasses and dark pants, who asked the neighbor if she knew where Janet lived. The neighbor gave the man directions to her house. Suspect number 4 was a prominent and wealthy local contractor who admitted to having a secret affair with Janet. This man's name was also Scott. He claims that their relationship ended earlier that summer. The 5th suspect. A few days after her murder, police found out that the man who actually told Janet's father about his daughter not showing up for work was also one of her lovers, Janet's boss, Ron. Coincidentally, he was at some of the same bars as Janet that night, but this man made it very clear that this was not a relationship. 5 suspects in the murder of Janet Walsh, but police struggled to find any to blame for the murder. In the days, weeks, months, and then years that followed, Janet's mother and father kept copies of all the evidence and newspaper clippings. Eventually, Janet's mother, father, and older brother all died. Janet had been forgotten by everyone except Janet's youngest brother, who was given a call from a cold case investigator in 2011 with a new lead. Cold case investigators had what could only be described as a time capsule with evidence from Janet Walsh's cold case. They sent it off to a DNA lab to have it checked. Before, DNA wasn't a thing, and this time, on the top sheet that covered Janet's body, the lab found DNA. They then found even more DNA on her bathrobe and what was used to bound her hands behind her back. It had been over 30 years since Janet Walsh had been tied up and murdered in her own apartment. There was no reason for police to believe that the suspect was anyone other than someone she knew, but was it enough to arrest her killer? 4 men and 1 mystery man had moved on, living their lives. But they're about to get a call. We'll find out who killed Janet Walsh next on Murder Monday. During the summer of 1979, Janet Walsh was 23 years old and living alone for the very first time in an apartment outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That night, her friends claimed that she went home after spending the night drinking and dancing. The next day, her father discovered his daughter dead. She lay face down in the bed wearing a blue nightshirt. Her hands were bound behind her back with rope from a bathrobe, and tied around her neck was a light blue bandana. The murder of Janet Walsh had 5 main suspects. Her high school boyfriend that she married and then divorced, who was seen at her apartment the morning that she was discovered, a man she danced with at the bar the night before she rejected, who said that he walked home afterwards, only to have his checkbook found a week later a few blocks from her home, a mystery man that looked to be about 22 years old that visited a neighbor the night of the murder looking for Janet, a local builder who she was having a secret affair with, and her boss, who she started sleeping with after she divorced her husband, and was the one that alerted Janet's parents to their daughter not showing up for work. For investigators in 1979, their top suspects were Janet's ex-husband, Scott, and the man she met at the bar. Police gave them both polygraph tests. And the result? Both men were being deceitful. But in 1979, they didn't have enough evidence or the proof to which one was the killer. So the case went cold for over 30 years. The murder of Janet Walsh haunted investigators. They had a number of suspects, but they all had different stories and alibis. Everything from the man she met at the bar the night before, who claims that he just walked home and has no clue how his checkbook ended up just blocks from her house, to the man that was a successful contractor, who claims that he was home that night, and he had 2 friends sleeping on his couch, ironclad alibis. Then in 2011, the case got a shock of new energy. Thanks to DNA technology, a lab tech for the police found DNA samples on Janet Walsh's bedspread, on the back of Janet's nightgown, on the ties that were used to bound her wrists, and it was more than enough to create a DNA profile. Police went back, located 4 of the 5 suspects, since one was still a mystery, and asked them for a DNA sample. Some said yes, while one said no. Now a city council member in the town. He told police that they would need to get a warrant before he handed over any evidence. So, police got creative and hatched a plan to get this city council member's DNA. As a city council member, during breaks and meetings, this man would use the water fountain in the lobby, then throw away his cup, which is when police swooped in and collected that cup and found that it was a perfect match to the DNA profile at the crime scene. The councilman was suspect number 4, Scott Hopkins, the successful contractor that was having a secret affair with Janet Walsh, now 65 and semi-retired. And as soon as they had that DNA evidence, everything started to fall into place. It had been 34 years with no one having to pay the price for Janet's murder. The trial would only take 8 days. There were over 40 witnesses, including Scott Hopkins himself, including one of Scott's ex-wives who said that Scott enjoyed tying women up. The jury took only 6 hours to render a verdict. They found Scott Hopkins guilty for the murder of Janet Walsh. It came late, but justice was served.
From regular expenses to occasional splurges, there's a lot to buy. Why not get cash back every time you spend? With the PenFed Power Cash Rewards Card, you get cash back on every purchase. That's everywhere, every time you use it. You can even earn a $100 statement credit when you spend $1,500 in the first 90 days. Visit PenFed.org/PowerCash to apply. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA.